Hello everybody and welcome to the county seat today. I'm your host Chad Booth. We have a special county seat program today. We're going to spend the entire half an hour with Senator Orrin Hatch, the ranking senator from the state of Utah, get his perspective on some of the issues that have great impact here in the state of Utah, particularly at the county level. So Senator, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, nice to be with you, Chad.
I appreciate it very much that you take your time out of your busy schedule.
Happy to do it.
I would like to start with, I want to spend the most time, which we'll have a little later in the show, to talk about House Bill 148 and its impacts.
Sure.
But I would like to start with the other hot topic, and that is sage grouse. Right now it seems like I'm hearing from people around the state that sage grouse is the spotted owl of the West. And it seems like we have an administration that looks like they're very willing to use sage grouse to accomplish their wildlands, which they said they weren't going to do, a policy of closing off large tracts of land. Is that an oversimplification of what the sage grouse problem is?
No, I think that's a pretty good analysis of what they're trying to do. Look, they're trying to make the sage grouse an endangered species. They'll probably, what they should do is probably result in a decision that it's a threatened species. But they want to shut down a whole bunch of areas of Utah just to protect the sage grouse. And that's not right. I mean, that's just something that Utahns are going to be very upset about and very bitter about.
Well, currently, it seems like the BLM is trying to work with the state to mitigate the problem in advance of an endangered species declaration. Does that seem like a good model?
Well, I think so, because you know, let's face it. A lot of these environmental extremists want to shut down Utah. They want to shut down all of our mining, our grazing, our oil and gas development, et cetera, all of which redounds to the benefit of our educational system, by the way. And they want to shut it down, so they'll choose any kind of mechanism to do it, and the sage grouse appears to be a mechanism of choice. And we just hope that the Department of Interior doesn't buy off on that. It's one thing to want to protect a threatened species, but I don't even think it's threatened. There's plenty of sage grouse out there, and I personally believe that that this is one that you know, it's a typical extremist approach to things. Just shut down broad swaths of Utah, which is 63% plus owned by the federal government. You know, this is one of the most mineral-rich, oil and gas-rich, grazing-rich, beautiful states where on our RS-2477 roads, we've traveled on them for years, and yet we're finding that the BLM and some of the other agencies are trying to shut down these roads, trying to really shut down Utah. I'd like them all to get out of here. You know, we can keep the federal government ownership of the, you know, of the national parks and true wilderness areas that have been so designated. But we could manage these lands a lot better than the federal government could. And you know, it's very unfair to our state because a lot of other states have been given their lands by the federal government. And the federal government has the option to do that if it wants to. But I have to say, we are assaulted by some of these environmental extremists who are paid by people outside of our state. Many of them are outside of our state. And they come in here and try to dictate what our lands and what we can do with our lands and what our lands should be interpreted as. And they use any kind of threat, any kind of endangered species threat or any kind of even threatened species threat to shut down Utah. And it's pretty irritating. The president brags about his administration is producing more oil. That's because of the Bakken claims there in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. And they found a huge play down in Texas. No, not due to him. The reason we found those plays and the reason they're going so well, and they claim Bakken has, the Bakken play has as much oil, if not more, than all of Alaska. The reason we found those is because they're on private land. Now, that private land used to be federal government land. It was given to North Dakota by the federal government. They haven't chosen to treat us as in a similar fashion or a decent fashion like that.
Well, we ought to continue that conversation and talk specifically about House Bill 148 and what will happen at the federal level as that proceeds. We'll be right back with the county seat in just a minute.
Anything worth doing in this quiet little town? You strike me as the kind of girl that likes a manicure and a massage.
I was hoping for something a little more vigorous.
Vigorous, I can do.
And I thought you'd be riding side saddle.
What? I'm gonna regret this.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. SITLA manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of furthering the education of Utah students while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, we distributed more than $22 million to Utah schools last year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. We have ignition sequence start. Engines on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff. 3 minutes past the hour.
If you look up epic in the dictionary, it's defined as heroic, majestic, or impressively great. Here in Kane County, Utah, we don't need a dictionary to tell us that. We live it every day. Stop reading about life and start experiencing it in Kane County. ATV adventures, Jeep excursions, hike a world where the Old West was yesterday and tomorrow is just over the horizon. Kane County, Utah, where epic is more than just a word, it's our way of life.